I wanted to have a chance to introduce Tim Cerny, one of our amazing Fairbanks business persons who owns Fountainhead Development. But both Tim and Barb, his wife, have set up a foundation, and they have committed a huge amount of personal energy and time and funds to making our community a world-class attraction for their auto museum. How many people have been to the auto museum? Yes, I'm sure you'll agree, but he's taking it to a new level. So he's going to be talking about that today. And I just wanted to make one more mention about Tim's philanthropy. Tim actually became very concerned about our homeless population in Fairbanks and purchased a hotel and donated the hotel for people to live in, and it's been a huge success. So his philanthropy is quiet and in many different quarters. So with that, let's welcome Tim Cerny.
Is that better? Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, perfect. I forgot to get turned on. Well, good afternoon. As Karen's with Karen's introduction, I'm Tim Cerny, and I've been in Fairbanks for quite a long time. I'm now called kind of one of the old guys here. I started as a young businessman in Fairbanks in 1980, and I was in banking and then moved into real estate development and operations. Have loved my time here in Fairbanks, raised my 4 children and now 4 grandchildren here. So it's home and it's where I'm staying and going to stay. And so I'm the original idea, I guess the spark of the Fountainhead Antique Auto Museum starts with me back in 2006. We worked on putting the plans together and acquiring some of the vehicles until 2009. We opened the museum on kind of a soft opening, if you will. We continue to develop the museum into what it is today. So we just finished our 16th summer, which it seems like just yesterday we opened it. And we've had way too much fun with this project. The museum has, we like to talk about the museum today as having kind of 3 legs. It has the automotive component, which is all American built cars from the nascent auto industry, which is the late 1890s until World War II. They're all American manufacture, and we focus on the technological developments that occurred during that early period. And it's amazing how fast these cars and the engineers and the designers who built them progressed during this period. And we tell that story. We also tell Alaska's transportation history story. So we have over 110 historic photos that line the walls within the museums, within the museum. It has, these photos have been researched, and we're still discovering, in some cases, who people are in the photos. We've written a book with Nancy DeWitt as our author, talking about the wonderful stories of Alaska's early transportation. How did people get around in the state of Alaska? How did they keep their water from freezing in their cars? How did they keep the oil warm? And we've got these incredible stories that came out of that research. In addition, we are a repository for the largest vintage fashion collection in the Pacific Northwest. We have we're still learning now, we're putting it all onto a past perfect program, but we have over 3,000 garments in the collection. We have shoes, we have hats, we have all of the support material that it takes to keep and display accurately individuals and what they wore at different times. The collection goes back to the 1740s. comes forward to the 1950s. We've recently added a few dresses from actually the 2000s, simply because we love to tell a story about nothing, nothing is new. Everything old comes back. So we can show you the same costume ideas from the 1740s all the way forward to the 2000s. These are usually done in special exhibits. Right now we have 4 people that are working in the vintage fashion area. In the new museum, we'll be able to expand the number of garments that we have on the floor. Right now, we try to maintain somewhere between 100 and 115 outfits out on the floor. About the start of COVID, we decided that we were running out of space. The current facility was a design build. It's 30,000 feet, and you can see it here in the picture. We kind of made the profile small to the front. It's really quite a bit deeper because we put it back into a wooded area, and it has a parking lot out front. But we started thinking we really needed a larger home. We have 135 cars in the collection, and we can only have 80 out at any given time. So enlarging the footprint of the facility was something that we needed to be looking toward. In addition, we were telling Alaska's transportation story without talking about aviation. Aviation is really what connects all of our remote communities within Alaska. Even today, we don't have many roads. We use small planes to get from place to place. It's hard to overestimate the impact that aviation has on rural Alaska and how fast it takes off as soon as we have planes and early aviation pioneers. It was a very risky business. Many of these individuals who flew these planes wrecked, and we've all heard stories about them dying across the state, but they did it. And we have these stories about what this entailed and what it means to Alaska and our development. So we started talking with the Pioneer Aviation Museum at Alaska Land, which we knew was working on trying to find a new home. The Gold Dome leaks. There are no bathrooms in the Gold Dome. It's not adequately lit. It doesn't have, there were a lot of things about it that weren't working, and the borough didn't want to spend the money to improve the building and bring it to a current, modern standard. So we started the conversations in 2000, and they immediately were interested, and we have worked over a period, the last 5 years to come up with a plan. And so we had a complex problem. First we needed airplanes, and we sort of got that taken care of, at least in part, with a joining of the 501c3s. Well, we also needed a much larger building, and we realized that we needed a long-term plan for how, if we put this together, how are we going to provide a pathway for this to last beyond the current generation that's running it, which would be myself and Willie Vinton, who manages the museum, Bill Green, who is very active on the board with the Pioneer Aviation Museum. And so we started, we worked on, so we needed a building, we needed a plan for how, we would join the 501c3s, and we needed to establish an endowment that would provide the funds necessary to continue the operation of this museum long into the future. We also needed to inject new blood in the boards and the activity. We needed young people. I've got one here. Bobby Hansen is sitting in the front row. He has historically been fascinated with fast modern cars. And over 10 years, we've convinced him that old cars are actually better. and more interesting. I'm going to show you a few pictures here for those who haven't been to the museum. If they wrote, oh, okay. Okay, so there we go. This is the inside of the museum. For the, and most people have been here. I think Karen had a hands up, and but this is the collection. As I mentioned, is early American. We have a special Alaska section where we focus on Alaska specific vehicles. Let's see. Okay, it's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll see if these. Yeah. So this is an example of pairing vintage fashion with automobiles. And it wasn't uncommon in the 1930s, even the late 20s, for women to match their clothing to the car they were going to be in. And so this is a perfect example of what that looks like if you pull it off right. And Connie Strix, many of you may know Connie. Connie works in the clothing division, the vintage fashion area, and she is amazing at combining colors of the cars and the clothing to the periods. This is an outdoor display we did of some garments, 20s garments that worked with, you know, kind of the Northern Lights theme and color. We're always trying to work on special exhibits so the things, it changes all the time. If you come to the museum, you'll notice that. Whoop. Okay, so here we are. I got to get to this part of my talk. So we spent a lot of time looking at existing buildings in the Fairbanks community. We looked at putting an addition on the existing museum, and we looked at building an entirely new facility. The facility we're in now was a design build building to house the museum. One of the challenges with all of these old cars is they're all wood construction. They're very susceptible to drying out and cracking, which can ruin the paint jobs. So we have to maintain humidity. Usually we shoot for about 35% in the building. Those of you who live in Fairbanks know that a 35% humidity inside a building in Fairbanks at 40 below zero is a challenge, because if there is any break in your vapor barrier, you're going to have trouble. You're going to collect moisture in walls, ice. And so we had to come up with, you know, we had to be able to find a tight building. We wanted to have a gathering area. The existing museum does not have a place where we can hold special functions. So we do special functions, but when we do one, we have to move a lot of cars. And our docents, many have been with us since we opened 16 years ago, when they were in their 60s, early 60s, are now in their mid and late 70s. So it's not as easy to move a large number of cars to create a space for for an event. So we wanted to make sure that we had an event space. We wanted a larger restoration area. Restorations are a big part of what we do. We find vehicles that may need mechanical work, may need body work, you know, and we're constantly working on our fleet because we're a living museum. Every vehicle except 3 in the museum are in running condition, and they drive around the Wedgwood property. In the summer, we have 2 or 3 cars. Anytime it's sunny, you'll always see cars outside, from our electric cars to our steam cars to our early gas cars. They're out at Wedgwood. And so we needed, one of the most popular things in the museum is being able to peer in the windows and see what the guys are working on. And so we wanted to have space not only for cars restorations, but also for airplane restorations. And that was an important part. We wanted to be able to drive the cars. So we needed a large lot that we could drive the cars around, or we had to be on a very, very quiet road. In addition, we wanted excellent lighting. Lighting is so important, is really what brings our museum to life right now. Our cars, the colors are true. That's very hard to do, to get that to happen. We are very careful with the amount of light that we get on dresses because we obviously don't want to fade them. We use a light meter anytime we set up a new display. So that was important as well. And we looked at a number of buildings. We happened to own the Kmart and have for 23 years. We've used it for storage, warm storage here in Fairbanks. Some of you may have stored a car or a boat there or know someone who did. When we first started working on it, it didn't pass the test for a vapor barrier. It was the ideal location. It had the space we needed, but it didn't pass the vapor barrier test. And so we went out and we researched other buildings in addition to the existing museum. And we kept coming back looking at this building. And finally we called Design Alaska, and they have a vapor barrier expert who actually doesn't live in Fairbanks anymore. I think it was Chicago that he lives in. But he helped kind of work our way and talk us through how we might be able to coordinate a vapor barrier in the building. And we spent probably, 6 months, Bobby, on that? Back and forth, talking about, how different ideas. We really had to build a building within the building. And some walls we couldn't fix. So we've lopped them off, if you will, with vapor barrier walls that are inside the building. And then those areas have to stay dry, and there will be some moisture migration. So we're going to be using desiccant-based dehumidifiers to dry those areas out if any moisture gets in them, so it doesn't get into the outside walls. And there's 3 areas in the building that we're doing that with, that we couldn't fix. And then the rest of the building, we we used a combination of a closed cell foam and intumescent paint, which is a fireproof paint over that. And in every case, every square inch in that building has been gone over 4 times. You spray, you inspect it, you test it, you spray, you test it. And then finally, we would apply the intumescent paint to create. It took 1 year to create the vapor barrier inside the building. And we had people on it every day. Tremendous amount of handwork. So once we made the commitment, then we were ready to cut loose and come up with designs. So you can see we're starting here. This is where we're going to have a new addition. We were going to get it up this summer, but we had design issues and some steel issues. But this is what the addition will look like. And this will be the main entry, and it's right through the plywood that you see there. There'll be an Arctic entry, and then we'll have a glass area here that'll be available for special exhibits and programs. We have a program for interns that we've had, I think, 5 or 6 interns. Now, we have an intern who's been attending this program, I think, on and off. Jocelyn, you'll recognize her. She usually dresses in period, or dressed somewhere in the 1940s or 50s, depending on how she's feeling that day. But they will give programs, if you can look for them. We run them in Latitude, where we'll have a program running for special programs. I think the best attendance we had was for historical accuracy of the dress or the costumes in the Titanic movie. And I think we're like 120 people showed up for our intern's presentation, and he did an excellent project. Usually these young people are coming out of universities in the lower 48 with a focus in vintage fashion, costume design, or museum studies. So let's see, I missed a slide. There, okay. Yeah, as soon as you get up. Okay, so this is, it gives you a little bit of an idea of the inside, but we're cut off at the top. So this is as we started when the building was used for warm storage. So the ceiling has been taken out. We have to rotate all the sprinkler heads up. You can see the vapor barrier, the foam is in place, the intumescent paint is in place now. And the building looks roughly similar to this today, but there's a lot of stuff that's happened in kind of back office stuff, if you will. This is a picture of us applying, again, you can't see the guy, but this is that we're in the main area of the building, and we're applying foam on the ceiling, and it was, you know, very laborious job to get it just right. We don't apply the intumescent paint until we're sure that every crack, every hole has been filled. And we did a blower door test before we started this project, and I turned the test off because I was afraid we were going to lose the roof. The rubber membrane was, the building was so porous, the rubber membrane had blown up on the roof. It was about 18 inches off the surface of the roof. And so that's how porous it was, and that's why it was so important to put all this energy into the vapor barrier. Here's a picture of the side-facing Airport Road. This will become our restoration area. This was a service shop for Kmart. We pulled most of the doors out. We only needed 3 of the doors. We're going to have an area on what will be far right is an outdoor display area where we'll have items that aren't restored that can be outside for display, and there's a separate entrance for that to the building. We did repaint the entire structure as well. And my wheel, no work. Up. Okay, this is the existing restoration area in the museum. You can see the glass on the rear wall. That's where our visitors can peer in and see what's happening inside the museum, or the museum restoration area. We have about 2,000 feet in the existing. We're going to move to this, which is 7,000 feet. Those same windows that are in the existing facility are going to move to this area here. They're all now cut in, and people will be able to actually step inside the restoration area, which creates its own really cool space. On the side, to the top, is airplane restoration. We'll always be working on a plane, and obviously lots of time involved in handwork, but that'll be done on the top. On the side down here toward the bottom will be the auto restoration. We'll have a full machine shop, so we'll be able to rebuild engines. And then, of course, we've got the slab work. Okay, I'm almost done here. This is the inside now of the Gold Dome. You might recognize this is one of the early meetings. You can see everybody's got their COVID masks on as we got the boards together to visit about the project. One of the most important displays coming out of the Pioneer Aviation Museum will be the remains of the Ben Eielson plane. He was flying a Hamilton metal plane at the time in which he wrecked in Siberia in 1929, and the remains of that plane are in the Pioneer Aviation Museum now. We have purchased this plane, which is the last surviving Hamilton metal plane. So this plane will be on display, and Nancy DeWitt, who is our historian and writer, is working on that now. To build up that story and tell that story, it's going to be unique. It's a very important part of Alaska's transportation history. Ben Eielson was one of the early aviation pioneers. And my last slide is a picture of a HISO standard J1. We just purchased this plane about 3 months ago. It comes from a collection in Napa Valley. Ben Eielson, the first plane that Ben Eielson flew is hanging in the airport. His second plane and more effective plane was a J1 standard. These are very rare, and it is currently sitting in a Connex behind the Kubota store on Van Horn Road. Both of these planes are in flying condition, but we will not fly them. it's prohibitively expensive to insure them. Usually it's owner flyers that fly these early airplanes. We will have it displayed in the museum. We do not have a hangar door. So once we get them in the museum and assembled, they'll stay there. So, I think that concludes my program. And then, Bobby has a video that he'll be running.
So we're going to send out the video in an email because we have to stick to the next presentation, which is about baseball. But we are going to mail it out if that's all right with you. Is that okay? Yeah.
Oh, I went too long.
No, you're fine. And you have a tour coming up also, right?
Right. We have a tour on Saturday at the new facility at 1 o'clock. And we'll go over all the different areas and how things will be laid out. And I think you'll find it interesting if you choose to come.
Thank you so much.
Ask questions?
Yes, I think,
Pictures you got on the wall.
yes.
Those going-
The existing facility is going to become a conference center, and we're going to move about half of the transportation-focused pictures into the new facility, and then we're going to augment those with activities in Fairbanks. Fairbanks, different things within that museum, and then we'll build up the transportation story, including aviation photos. Richard Wien is helping us with that for the new facility. So there'll be 100 photos in the new conference center that'll be Fairbanks-centric activities like conferences. And then at the new facility, it'll be transportation-focused. But we'll enlarge it.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I have fun with it.
Thank you so much, Tim. I understand the Auto Museum is the #1 visited attraction in Fairbanks and maybe the 10th in the state. So with the combination with airplanes and other vehicles, it'll be quite amazing. It's my pleasure now to introduce our state historian, which is quite a title and quite an honor. We all know Katie Ringsmith as for her work in many things, including canneries and historic preservation in the Bristol Bay area. But we now know her huge fascination with baseball, which I think you shared with Terrence Cole as well, and the work that she is doing now to help us understand our history of baseball as we move into our centennial for the country. So help me welcome Katie.
Thank you, Karen. All right. Now I got to figure out how to, do I just move right here? Okay. All right. Well, I'm also a soccer mom too, as you can see. Before I get going, I just have to say kudos to the Auto Museum in Fairbanks is doing that. So my kiddo, and yeah, this is just like shameless. My kiddo's now in Germany playing soccer at a soccer academy, and the BMW Museum in Munich, how coolest museum ever. So have you been? Oh, it was amazing. And now all I want is a BMW. My husband did not like that trip very much. He did not like the museum for that reason, but very cool. So good job, guys. Awesome. Yes. So I am your Alaska State Historian. I'm the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer. I'm also an alum of UAF. I was in the Northern Studies program. I teach actually U.S. history and Alaska history at UAA. I've curated lots of museum exhibits. I'm a little leaguer parent, so I know what that's like. And yes, I am a soccer mom, which I find to be my most important job right now. And I also want to point out too that yes, I'm going to be talking about baseball, and so much of why are we going forward? So much. Should I be pointing at something here? Because I got it. Sorry. So much of the work that I'm going to be doing with this America 250, it is absolutely inspired by Terrence Cole. And so every time I go to, okay, perfect. Every time I go to a baseball game, he is not far from my heart. So at OHA, for those of you who may not know, the Office of History and Archaeology, I oversee the Alaska Geographic Names Program, Certified Local Governments Program, a lot of different programs that deal with historic preservation. Nope, we're not turning. Oh, there it goes. Oh, this is funky. Okay. Well, the previous sign, my most important job is this one, the National Register program for Alaska. Oh, this is going to be a pain. And so what we are trying to, what I've been trying to do with the National Register program is kind of dispel this myth that getting something listed on the National Register is prohibited to economic development. We supply a lot of grants for people. Getting something listed on the National Register can be a very positive thing. Okay, so very tricky. What I'm trying to do with the program moving forward is thinking about how the National Register can be used in what, for positivity, right? That a National Register nomination exponentially increases our ability to preserve places that matter to our community. It can be an excellent source of content, allowing for authentic interpretation of the built environment over time. It also can be a gateway to public education and economic development, and importantly, it can create new markets for historic preservation services. And as you can see, I gave this presentation not long ago at the Economic Development conference down in Southeast Alaska, and it took the business leadership there about 4 minutes to get this. And they're like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. Came home with boatloads of business cards. So as you can see here, historic preservation has actually a lot of benefits, none of which I'm going to talk about today because I don't have time, but there are so many benefits. But to me, the most important, I'm going the wrong way, is heritage tourism. Now, heritage tourism is simply travel directed towards experiencing the heritage of a city, region, state, or country. Heritage tourism enables tourists to learn about and be surrounded by local customs, tradition, history, and culture. And no one has to tell anybody in the tourism industry that people who are interested in the history and culture of a place will stay longer and they will spend more money. So again, I think that there's a huge amount of research showing this. And so that's something important that I've been going through, is thinking about incentivizing historic preservation, because you just have to do that in this state. And so that coincides with the America 250. How many of you have heard of the America 250? Wow, fantastic. Yes, so the America 250 is happening next year in 2026. Places like Virginia and Connecticut, they have been planning this for 10, 15 years. They have millions of dollars that they have invested into their America 250 initiatives. They have been super excited about this. The other half of the country, from about the Mississippi River, the Rocky Mountains that way, they're struggling. We've struggled because we can't, even some of the grants they've offered, we don't even have the historic properties old enough to be able to nominate that are associated with like the Revolutionary War. So it has been challenging to figure out how exactly Alaska was going to actually participate. But it is a really cool opportunity. It's really a once in a lifetime opportunity. Some of you might have remembered, the 200 anniversary, but this is important. So it was a struggle for the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission at the national level to they wanted to get all the states and all the territories involved beyond just the 13. And so one of the things they were trying to do with Alaska, because Alaska, we were kind of dragging our feet a little, they brought in Senator Murkowski, to serve at that national level, which was important. And eventually, okay, come on. Doesn't like to go forward. Probably pretty typical of a history conference. We don't like to go forward. Okay. So I'm going really the wrong way now. Okay. There we go. Okay. So finally, Governor Dunleavy signed Administrative Order 357, and Alaska appropriately became the 49th state to join the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial. Yay, we beat Florida. and he designated the Alaska Historical Commission, which is chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, to kind of oversee Alaska's participation. And as a state historian, she asked me to prepare a plan for the state. And so I came up with a vision statement. And really, we didn't get any money, so we have no money, and me running it. So Connecticut, millions of dollars in 15 years, and you guys get me and no money. So yay. So I came up with a vision statement that really was trying to be as broad as possible, so that could include anyone, because I don't want to be a gatekeeper of anybody's project or how they want to engage in the 250. So really, I came up with this statement, said Alaska visionaries who built this great state of Alaska, they were really ordinary people who achieved the extraordinary. So the America250 Alaska is a celebration and a commemoration. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to illuminate Alaska's vast history and cultures, to inform Americans about Alaska's contribution to the nation, involve all Alaskans in telling our state story, inspire current Alaskans, especially our Alaska youth, by connecting them to our collective history, and this is the important one I threw in there, invest in heritage programs that empower local communities, contemporary generations, and future trailblazers. We want them to think big again. Sorry for the delay. It should be more. Okay. So as I was putting together this plan, I was very much inspired by the Constitutional conventioneers who met here 70 years ago, right? And in 1956, this group of people, and remember, this is before big oil, this is before Alaska had a lot of money, right? They had this constitution, and what did they do? They bequeathed this new idea, this new state, to the next generation. Said, study it, learn from it. Yes, be proud of your past, but look forward, right? We want you to take tomorrow and dream. And when I read that, I was like, that's it. That's the thing, right? So that's made me starting to think about dreaming and being optimistic and having a future. And of course, I thought, baseball. So as you can see, the America250, if you go online and you go to the America250, there are a lot of different programs. And again, I don't really have time to focus on that, but we at our office, we're trying our best to help move some of these ideas out there. We're looking at some we can actually engage in, and there are a few national programs that we're looking at. But the way I see it is, rather than having the well, I guess Washington, D.C. kind of dictate to us what we want to do. We here in Alaska have this really cool story that we can actually share with the rest of the country. And that's something that can be pretty impressive. And that is our baseball story. So number one, the story meets the criteria for the America250, illuminate, inform, involve, inspire, and invest that I just kind of lined out. And it also meets the mission of the Office of History and Archaeology and Parks and DNR. And the reason for that is, yes, this was a statewide initiative, but it was DNR, Parks and Outdoor Recreation, and OHA that really stepped up to lead this program. And importantly, it meets the mission and it lines well with what we're trying to do. So we're not doing something on top of everything else. Well, we are kind of, but it still meets the things that we're trying to do, particularly getting this ball field here listed on the National Register on a local, state, and oh, by the way, national level, which is pretty darn cool. So I started out pitching this idea to both the people of Fairbanks as well as Major League Baseball, this idea of a week of dreams that we could celebrate around the 4th of July. Something, by the way, Alaskans have been doing for over 150 years. And again, it's not like we're some outpost, frontier, a weird little story. We help shape Major League Baseball, right? America's pastime. We here in Alaska shaped that story. And when you look at some of the players who played in our Alaska Baseball League that you guys started here in Fairbanks right after statehood, that kind of optimism. I mean, Mr. Baseball, Al Davis, the Boones all played up here. Dad and the two kids. Dave Winfield. I mean, he came up here twice. For that statue. I mean, talk about a guy who is so generous and kind and appreciative of, how Alaska shaped his former years. We're talking about one of the greatest pitchers to ever pitch, Tom Seaver, played up here. You have Barry Bonds and Giambi. You have Harold Reynolds, who's still very important in MLB.com. He's a broadcaster. And then, oh, by the way, we have this New York Yankees center fielder who was a Glacier pilot. You ever hear of him? Aaron Judge, who played up here. And, Jacoby Ellsbury, Randy Johnson, Hall of Famer, who's also a photographer now. And anybody who's a Mariners fan, please raise your hand, because I've been one since the 2nd grade when they started. Oh my God, Brian Wu was an Oiler. This kid is the darling of MLB right now. These are assets for us. Oh, and Satchel Paige, right? Stunning. He played at Mulcahy in an exhibition game in 1965, right after the earthquake. He was going to even start a team called the Alaska Earthquakers. Didn't quite happen, but what it did do is it inspired a whole tradition of little leaguers in Alaska. And our history isn't just about these MLB players. It's also about some of the oldest baseball, not just in Alaska, but in the country. 1868, the first game in Alaska was played on the Pribilof Islands by an integrated team of Hawaiians and Alaska natives and missionaries from Connecticut. And that team still exists, which I love this name, the Knock 'em Down and Skin 'em Club from St. Paul Island. And that ball field is still being played on. And it is such an extraordinary story. So that is going to be another National Register candidate for sure. We're talking about the whalers up on the Arctic Sea, the first African-American ball club, the Buffalo Soldiers out of Skagway from 1903, not to mention Anchorage. I mean, early settlement, 1915. You also see integrated teams play at a time, and the rest of the country wasn't so much having it. Japanese teams from the Pacific Northwest would come along the coast and play. This is them playing with some of the cannery workers and residents from Wrangell. Women had opportunities to play baseball in Alaska. This is the athletic park. If you've been to the Anchorage Museum, that's exactly the site where the athletic park was in Anchorage. And like I said, you know, this is also a story about our young people. We talk constantly about how we can get our kids more involved in history. Well, this is it. They love it. We have an, you know, exhibit that we put out, and Little Leaguers read every single word of this. They see themselves in this story. It's pretty cool. And guess what? They are the stars of it, not the adults. It's the kids that really get to shine here. And so one of the things that we're doing with the America250 with this baseball kind of theme here is that, like I said, I'm using the National Register program to identify some fields that are significantly important to these communities and helping those communities get listed on the National Register. And that, of course, would give them access to, you know, grants and tax credits and things like that, so they can become economic engines and help revitalize communities through sports and sports tourism. Now, one of the things we did I got a small stipend from the commission, the U.S. Semi-Quincentennial Commission, of $10,000. And so I took that money and I turned it into an exhibit. I have 2 sets of them. And what I'm done is I said, okay, we're going to travel it around the state. And any small museum wants it, they can sign up for it. We'll get it to them. They don't have to pay anything for this. I know a lot of museums got hit hard, and so they may not have the capacity to celebrate the America250 like they do in Virginia. But at least they can do this, and at least they can get their communities out there and play baseball on the 4th of July. That's what we can help them do, plus celebrate this extraordinary history, which CNN, ESPN was enthralled with, by the way, not to mention the New York Times, who self-identified baseball poet, wrote that story at the Midnight Sun game. It was a blast. And then look at this. I mean, talk about Dave Winfield. Had to have him, so he was posing in front of the picture with him in there. You know, just the lovely, wonderful, you know, the history. I mean, anybody who goes to the Midnight Sun game totally appreciates how unique and special this is. When Dave Winfield was in town, the Goal Panners, I lectured those kids all about the history with the banners, and oh my God, they loved it. They were so cute. And then we had at the opening in Fairbanks on the 19th, we had folks from St. Paul's Knockin' Down and Skin 'em Club there to help us with the opening. So in addition to the banners, we're right now in the process of doing a companion booklet in which will allow me a little bit more room to add to the story. And again, we started out with 1,000. Now we're looking at 10,000 copies because cruise ship people want them now. And so again, I want to be able to give this to people for free. Maybe not the cruise ship people, but definitely Alaskans, right? So, you know, people can, the Goal Panners, for example, can hand them out at a game. And Lisa Murkowski said she'll give one to every single member of Congress. I met Ichiro's interpreter at a conference not too long ago, and she's like, oh yeah, we're going to send this to Cooperstown. This is assets, because this is one of the most popular themes in American history, and we have something even the biggest geek in a baseball doesn't know. That is currency. So these are just some of the layout designs we have so far. So the third thing that we're going to do is we've talked to MLB about what we're calling a week of dreams. And again, I don't have time to go through the details. I'll be here all, you know, for today and tomorrow, and I'm happy to talk people through what the week of dreams is, what it's going to look like. We're going to need a lot of help and partnerships. I need to raise a lot of money for this. I mean, not a lot, a couple $100,000, which quite frankly isn't a lot, but the idea is to invite former Alaska Baseball League players who got their start up here and then went on to play in the major leagues to come back and do fun baseball stuff with us, play with our kids, tour Alaska, do some golf tournaments so we can raise money for field improvement and awareness for our kids and our youth. And again, the final thing in this, once you have fields improved, and we're not just talking about baseball, we could talk about the soccer fields. You guys have really good soccer fields up here in Fairbanks. Anchorage, not so much. We have beautiful places for them, but our fields are terrible. And if we got these facilities improved just a little bit, then they become something different. Those venues can be used way beyond just, a summer league, right? So by improving our fields, and when I say fields, I like all of our sports, whether it's our trail systems, whether it's our ski slopes, whether it's our baseball fields or our soccer pitches, these also are economic possibilities. Sports tourism right now, if anybody knows anything about sports business, it is booming. Sports tourism is it's not even close to peaked. Everything else is tanking in the tourism industry, but sports is not only staying stable, it's rising. A lot of that has to do with the collegiate changes, sports business, sports medicine, step in sports, sports law. Everything is just a wild west right now. Hint, hint, UAF should get some programs going, teaching young people how to get into this business, whether it's agents or managing teams or front office kind of stuff. The business of sports is booming. 70% of Americans identify themselves as a fan of sport. So right there, you are tapping into a market. And like I said, when we traveled with my Thomas for soccer in Europe, every stadium we toured had an exhibit or a museum attached with it, told that story. So even in the off season, you can have opportunities. We talked to Major League Baseball, what it would take to get a major league game up here. Maybe a Field of Dreams, maybe a Field of Dreams in Fairbanks, maybe a Field of Dreams in the Pribilof Islands. How cool would that be? And again, it's the tournament play. Right now, your parents out there with kids are spending thousands of dollars to go to places like Idaho and Arizona to take their kids to compete. There's no reason why Alaska can't get on the circuit for these tournament plays if we had the facilities and if we had the places where teams can play. And that would inject thousands of dollars into local economies in just simply a matter of weeks. And then people will stay longer, right? They'll come, they'll do the tournament, and then they'll want to go to a Denali. They'll want to go on the train rides. They'll want to see the rest of Alaska once they're here. The World Baseball Classic is happening next year. So baseball isn't just an American thing. And we are an international tourism destination. Italy, baseball crazy. Britain, baseball crazy. And do I need to mention Japan? Oh my gosh, if they're already coming here to play golf because it's cheaper to play golf in Anchorage than it is in Tokyo. And that includes the airfare. So you add baseball to that mix and you will see fans in your seats, even if it's friendlies with kids. Again, we're international. We may not be able to get a professional American team up here, but we could get Bayern Munich because they would rather come here, play soccer, see the Bears, than play in Atlanta where it's 120 degrees. Right. And again, once they're here, they're going to go to your heritage sites. They're going to want to experience your natural wonders and stay in your hotels and eat in your restaurants and experience your rich, fascinating, surprising stories that they may not know. And people love that. They love to be informed about something they have a passion for, that they understand, that's familiar to them, but put it in a place that's completely different and out of context. And that's like a wow factor. That's why The Sopranos were so successful, quite frankly. And so one of the, Iditarod next year is leaning in on the America250. And like I said, the 250 is happening, but this is a trifecta of sports coming up. The Winter Olympics, the World Cup. And guess what? Alaska is going to be engaged in those events. We're already superstars of the Nordic scene, right? Everybody knows that. And by the way, your ski trails and your running trails up here should be listed on the National Register. The Equinox Trail, absolutely. But we also have Obed Vargas. Who here has heard of Obed? You know who knows Obed? The rest of the world. This is a kid who grew up playing soccer in Anchorage, Alaska. He was drafted, basically recruited to the Seattle Sounders when he was just 16 years old. And he was the youngest player to start midfielder for an MLS team. Now he's going to be playing for Team Mexico at the World Cup. Do you know how many people watch the World Cup? Like probably more than 1 million, probably more than we're probably closing to 1 billion people will be watching. And every time this kid plays, all the broadcasters say he's from Alaska. And why isn't he on every bus? Why isn't this kid on every tourism magazine? It's just stunning to me. This kid just played Messi and won. And you know what? He was walking around draped in an Alaska flag. We should all know who this kid is. And again, these are the stories that we can tell. Look at these faces of these children. This is the faces that we want, because these are our field of dreamers. This is who we are, and this is who we came from the stump turned bleachers of 150 years ago to now, right? We're still there filling those stadiums, and let's hope that y'all get out there on the 4th of July next year and celebrate your field of dreams, whether it's baseball, whether it's the pitch, soccer pitch, running trails, you name it, just get out there and play. All right, guys, that's all I got. Oh, and that's my dear little sweet boy. Oh, I did just want to mention one last thing. Last night, the Privilovians, Olga shared the story of the Knock 'em Down and Skin 'em Club with the Sports Hall of Fame short story night at the Bear's Tooth and killed it. There she is, with Olympic athletes, Dee Dee Johnroe, and just she was the darling of the night. So I am absolutely convinced. And again, talking about how the Privilofs healed because of baseball. It taught them, that community, how to become American again. And man, I can't think of a better way to honor our national pastime than baseball. Thanks, guys, very much.